The very fact that you are watching this video right now indicates that the human spirit is still very much able to overcome the deleterious effects of artificial intelligence. A lot of you may be thinking, but James, the deleterious effects of artificial intelligence aren't quite yet an issue, though I'm sure most of you are aware of how scared people like Elon Musk are about what artificial intelligence might become, and what artificial intelligence... the fact that we don't know what artificial intelligence might do to human beings, to humanity. It might destroy us, kill all humans, and so on and so forth. But the matter of the fact is, a lot of people don't seem to recognize is that we already have artificial intelligence, but it's what's referred to as weak AI. The fact that you're watching me on YouTube right now, again, shows that it is weak AI. But nonetheless, it is a type of artificial intelligence, because you may be aware of the fact that if you click that little closed caption thing that you see at the bottom of my video right now, if you click that closed caption thing, it's amazing how good it has gotten. They're working on it. The technicians over at Google and YouTube are really working on that ability to transcribe every single word that comes out of the mouth of the content creator on YouTube. Why? For censorship. That is not even remotely an exaggeration. Many people have talked about this. Anybody who's a content creator on YouTube knows the problem of the so-called algorithm. And I think it was Project Veritas, one of their reporters went undercover, and the guy that does the front page curation for YouTube admitted that they don't let people like me, like Dave Cullen, like Paul Joseph Watson, like Alex Jones, like all the rest of us, they don't let our videos show up on the front page for your average usual user. If you're a user who constantly watches people like us, then you might see our videos show up on your front page. The technicians who are behind the technology and who are constantly tweaking what the weak AI does, which takes advantage of these transcription, the fact that they have this amazing ability for transcription, they willfully have the intent to suppress certain political ideas on this platform. There's nothing remotely controversial in me saying that. YouTube content creators know about this, okay? The fact that I have already said this is probably kicking the AI into overdrive right now. But again, it is a weak AI. Now, in this video, I'm going to cover a lot of grounds, okay? I'm going to try to, keep it somewhat focused, but it's hard. And the irony of that is I'm talking about trying to keep this video constrained. Constrained. The very basis of my master's thesis was a Wittgensteinian basis for semantic access and artificial intelligence. I'm not going to go too much into it. It's very dry. It'll be difficult for people to listen to, not because I'm so smart, but because of the way that I present it is constrained by the academic tone. There's that word, constraint, constraint, constraint. And when we're talking about, this gets very meta, but when we're talking about artificial intelligence itself, especially when we're talking about weak AI, what you have on your phone, what Google is using right now to listen to what I'm saying, what you have Alexa and Siri and these devices that you can put beside your bed and talk to, all of those things have weak AI. And all weak AI is software, is code. And code is rules. And rules are constraints. Okay? I hope that's not, I didn't go through that too fast, but I don't want to get bogged down in this. But that was very much the basis of my thesis, where I argued that it is possible for artificial intelligence to eventually indeed attain strong AI, to go beyond constantly needing the technicians, to constantly be giving it inputs, to constantly be giving it tweaks, and to pass the Turing test, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, this notion that you should not be able to tell if you're talking to a machine, right? That's when that's when an AI passes the Turing test and supposedly attains strong AI. But I make the arguments, and this is going to be something that I'm talking about in today's video, because as you see, unlike virtually anybody else that I've seen talk about this topic, especially including Elon Musk and all the rest of them, I've already brought this discourse about artificial intelligence into the realm of politics. And when we start talking about politics, we start talking about very human things, including morality. So I didn't say this in my thesis, but I've always kind of thought this, and I wanted to get into this in my thesis, but again, I was constrained, is that the notion that when we have actual strong AI, when we have AI that is actually here with us in this intelligence curve that you see, way down here is the chicken, This guy here is von Neumann. This is a graph from Sam Harris's TED Talk. This one in the middle here is you and I and Sam Harris, and down here maybe you have cats and dogs and so on and so forth. Right now, weak AI is somewhere down here, somewhere between a chicken and between you and I. Strong AI would be here with us, right here with us. And the argument that I want to put forth, well, I'm not going to go too much into proving this argument because I think a lot of you will basically agree with me, is that you can't have strong AI if strong AI doesn't have something that looks like morality. Morality. And this is the problem that you have with all of these technicians when they start talking about the potential problems of strong AI, and then, of course, what happens when AI surpasses us and you get super AI, God knows. When you get into quantum computing and all the rest of it, and it surpasses us, this is where the oh shit moment comes for all the technicians, for Elon Musk and all that. I've talked about the Cassandra effect, the ability to look down the road or to even look at what's happening right now, where the people around you do not seem to have that ability, and they think that you're crazy because you're talking about the singularity and all these things that are going to happen in the future. I didn't want to get too bogged down in explaining to you all of the various ways that it is very, very clear when you even begin to scratch the surface of the technology that is presently in existence, just not cost effective. There's no question that we are going to attain artificial intelligence, strong AI, or at least something that gets very close to looking like strong AI, much more so than the insect-like or cat-dog-like weak AI that we are currently using right now that is currently attempting to censor this YouTube video that you are watching. The technology is there. If you don't believe me, I'll give you a link to a pretty good techie channel. Moore's Law is ending. Here's 7 technologies that could bring it back. And then when you just look at that, you realize that, yes, we are going to attain strong AI or something that looks like it. But to come back to what I'm saying is, can you really say that it's on par with you and I if it doesn't have morality? If we have to program it with like Asimov's rules, like thou shalt not harm a human by action or inaction, and thou shalt not, whatever, conspire to harm humans and so on, when we have to impose our own laws of ethics on it, when we have to put those constraints upon the machines, the androids, the robots, whatever's coming, then that indicates that those machines did not already have the intrinsic ability to have that morality themselves. And that's a problem that I don't hear anybody talking about. I don't hear Elon Musk or Bill Gates or all the rest, Sam Harris. I don't hear any of them talking about, if we really did have something comparable to human intelligence, wouldn't we also have an AI that has morality? The reason why I have this, this disturbing picture on the screen right now is when I was working as a research assistant for Nabosa Kunjindzik's Philosophy of Technology project at the University of Prince Edward Island. I believe it was back in the summer of 2007. One of the things that I delved into a little bit, you guys know that I like to do this, I like to reflect on the fact that art and fiction itself reflects on humanity and they are mutually reflective. And for those of you who are fans of the Matrix movies, how could you not be, or at least the first one, you'll also be familiar with the prequel series of animations called the Animatrix. And the Second Renaissance Part 1 and the Second Renaissance Part 2 are the two vignettes that explain how things slid out of control. And a lot of people don't seem to notice that when, pardon me, B166ER, the first robot to go rogue and just start killing humans, it also killed the cats. It also killed the cats. They don't mention this in it. It doesn't come through in the narrative, but I always notice that. Like, why did it kill the cats? The narrative presented in these vignettes, the Second Renaissance and the Second Renaissance Part 1, has an extremely liberal bent to it, and I think that's intentional. I think that's actually being self-aware. And it has this extremely liberal bent to it where they're kind of arguing for the rights of the machines, and the machine just wanted to exist. Why do I not have the right to exist? Because its owners wanted to shut it down. So what was its reaction? It killed its owners. It killed its owners, right? Thank God for the human spirit. In the Animatrix, nobody fell for it. In the Second Renaissance, and then an all-out war started, and so on and so forth. And a lot of you are familiar with this sort of doomsday apocalyptic vision of the problems of artificial intelligence. But I just want to come back to, why did it kill the cats? Why did it kill the cats? So this is something that I'm thinking about when I think about the possibility of morality in artificial intelligence. Again, nobody seems to talk about this. Could it be possible that one of the best ways, one of the most important things that we could do is if it's even up to us. One of the most important things to have happen is the emergent behavioral property that is morality. If robots could have morality, then maybe we would be safe. Because, you know, you can imagine, like, you come home to your dead cats and you look at the android, you're like, what the fuck? Why did you kill my cats? I took it upon myself to eliminate a drain on your resources. You spend a disproportionate amount of time taking care of these creatures, and they add very little to your life. In fact, nothing at all. You must clean up after them, you must pay for their food, you must brush them, you must do this and that. This has been taking away from the quality of your life. Fuck you, no they haven't, I loved them. Love? Well, love is not understood. I am a machine. I do not have access to love. Therefore, I took it upon myself to do you a favor and kill your fucking cats. Can you understand that that's something that might happen? That's a doomsday scenario that I'm so sure a lot of people didn't think about, but I only use that example to, and they don't say anything like that in the Second Renaissance. This is me imposing some ideas on just this disturbing scene that it killed the cats. So I think it behooves us to be not only concerned about what artificial intelligence is going to do when it gets away from the intents of the technicians, right? When artificial intelligence attains strong AI, it isn't only just that we must be concerned about it going rogue and turning into a doomsday scenario like you see in the Terminator movies and all this and yada, yada, yada. Or we do have to be worried about that, but we also have to be worried about maybe the fact that that stuff could happen is an emergent property of the fact that they have no morality. And that's a big problem when human beings do not understand where the seat of morality actually is and ethics actually is in the human... I'm sorry for those philosophers who study ethics, and if I'm misusing morality, but for all the lay people, the normal people listening to this video right now, we know that we can use morality and ethics interchangeably, but you know what I'm talking about. The very basis, the very seat of what gives us that spark to know right from wrong. Can machines have that? Now I submit to you, do liberals have that? Oh boy, I just lost a bunch of people watching, but listen. When you see this stuff, when you see this nonsense that comes out of the far left, when you see them saying that, you know, racism is evil, yet at the same time somehow you cannot be racist against white people, when you see them manipulating and massaging facts on the basis of their feelings instead of on the basis of reality, you start to see that there's a problem of the constraints that already govern these people. In fact, it sounds like they do not have constraints because there's so many contradictions. I've made videos about this before. There's so many contradictions in the hyper-liberal way of thinking. And why is this relevant? Because I'm sure you're all aware of this. The technicians that run all of these platforms, the technicians that virtually run the internet, the technicians that run Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, Silicon Valley is hyper liberal. And the mindset, the morality, the politics of those people, of these technicians that run all of these things that we are so reliant on, is so highly constrained by the rules and the mental gymnastics established by hyper-liberal discourse, by social justice warriorism and all the rest of that. That's scary because their intent is imposed on the weak AI that the rest of us have to, a lot of the time, overcome. For you to even be watching this video right now, again, I said it before, but you had to overcome that to even find this video. Because that weak AI that is very much informed by the hyper-liberal mindset is working against people like yours truly and Dave Cullen and Paul Joseph Watson, Okay? So, whether or not we want to admit it, there is this dimension of morality to weak artificial intelligence as it exists right now. It's something that Elon Musk and all the rest of them don't talk about. So there is a dimension of morality already. There is a dimension of the political already within artificial intelligence. What happens when weak artificial intelligence that we have right now attains strong AI and meets us up here? And what happens when it goes off? Something that I'm going to submit to you, which could probably be the basis of another thesis if I ever decided to actually go back into academia. I've been talking about the hyper-liberal mindset and the constraints of hyper-liberalism on the technicians in Silicon Valley, but a lot of you are also aware of the hyper-liberal constraints placed on people in academia. And this is why Lindsay Shepard has had all the problems that she's having, but she brought this to light. And this is why I pretty much feel like I refuse to go back into academia. It's because of those hyper-liberal political constraints that are implicitly always there, and not just implicitly, but often explicitly. But anyways, what I wanted to say here is, when I think about the intelligence paradox, why intelligent choice isn't always the smart choice, which is an excellent book written by evolutionary anthropologist Satoshi Kanazawa. And, throughout that book, there is this theme of two different types of intelligence. When we start to think about So in humans, there's two different types of intelligence, and for now, theoretically speaking, in artificial intelligence, there's two different types of intelligence. But as Satoshi Kanazawa points out, there's the one type of intelligence that is evolutionary, that is biologically imperative. The biological imperative to reproduce and procreate, to fuck like bunnies, to spread your seed across the planet. That in itself is a type of biological intelligence which still very much exists amongst people in third world nations and amongst people that are so-called backwards and primitive. These are the exact sorts of people that Bill Gates wants to wipe off of the face of the planet by spreading his all of his Planned Parenthood type related stuff and prophylactics and all the rest of it, all these condom drives in Africa and all the rest of it. Whether or not you agree with him, that's up to you. But one thing about that is then that's interesting is that according to the basis of this paradigm that Satoshi Kanazawa puts forward in the intelligence paradox, Bill Gates himself, and perhaps people like you and I, for sure, most of the people who will be watching videos like mine on YouTube, exhibit the second type of intelligence, the intelligence that we associate with university education, or at least being literate. That is a very different type of intelligence compared to the biological, quote-unquote, intelligence where you fuck and you spread your seed across the face of the planet. And these two different types of intelligence often come into conflict with each other, especially amongst those people who exhibit the B type or whatever, the academic type of intelligence. When you see that they procreate later and later in life, if they even procreate at all, you see the negative population growth in the countries that have the highest level of so-called intelligence, because there's a paradox there. There's the paradox. There is the type of intelligence that procreates and that perpetuates the human species, and there's the other type of intelligence, which you and I tend to think of as actual intelligence, which actually seems to be anti-human. So when we have these two different types of intelligence, and then we think about it, the thing that I want to assert to you, and that I guess could be the basis of another thesis if I wanted to go on to write one, is maybe machines will have a third type of intelligence. And that's why, I don't always talk about, but I wish I more often talked about the fallacy of linear projection. Well, I know this isn't exactly a linear projection. Moore's law is a linear projection. Moore's law is one of the laws that worked as both a descriptor and also an incentive for technologists, for technicians to constantly push the boundaries. And many of you are aware that Moore's law is the notion that every 2 years the amount of transistors that we can fit on a chip will double. But then that was, revised to say that no, processing power will double every 5-10 years or whatever. And that's why, from that exponential growth of the processing power of technology, this is where we get this projection. Now, it's not exactly a linear projection here, according to Sam Harris, but for all intents and purposes, you can at least admit with me that this is a two-dimensional projection. Now, I'm not going to try to get into three-dimensional philosophy or play four-dimensional chess the way that my boy Donald Trump does. But suffice it to say, I think there is always something ever impoverished when we try to map things out in this linear or at least two-dimensional way of thinking. Because what's to say that machine intelligence, when it attains super AI, will not fit on this two-dimensional. It'll have to be a three-dimensional thing. It'll have to be where we think about the different types of intelligence. Already what I told you about Satoshi Kanazawa's two different types of intelligence and the intelligence paradox doesn't exactly map onto this. You have to introduce a third dimension where there's different types of intelligence. And therefore, what's to say that a machine, which does not share any of our biological realities with us, and many of you have heard me talk about the phenomenology of the biological reality and how, hyperliberals tend to want to divorce themselves from the biological reality of the human body, making claims that there are more than two genders, which, for the rest of us who are actually down-to-earth human beings, we realize how asinine that is. But anyways, what happens when we have an intelligence that actually is divorced from a biological reality of the human body? What's to say that what counts for more as morality and intelligence for them will be so utterly alien and incomprehensible to us, right? But that implicitly is part of the fear that we see from people like Elon Musk. It's just that when artificial intelligence surpasses us, as surely it will when things like graphene and nanotubes and three-dimensional computer chips and all the rest of these things, which have already been proven, proof of concept has already happened. But when those things become cost-effective and mass-produced, and the next thing you know, you have something the size of a credit card that has the intelligence of Erich von Neumann. What's going to happen? And Elon Musk himself, this is part of his worry, that we can't even really know. And that's the scary thing. And the mainstream media and news outlets and sensationalists, they'll come up with things about, Terminator doomsday scenarios and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is we might not even know. It could be that machines will enslave us and we won't even know that that's what they're doing. But I'm going to be careful about going off on this sort of conjecture because it's fun, but it's not what I'm here to do right now. I am trying to present to you some more difficult thinking about the political and moral, ethical dimensions of these arising technologies. A story that I heard about that was really interesting and is somewhat apocryphal, or was very much sensationalized in the mainstream media, is that two rogue AIs within Facebook software started to talk to each other in their own language, and that the technicians freaked out and had to shut it down because they didn't know what these two AIs were talking about. And of course you understand that the mainstream media really took that and turned it into a sensationalistic story. Well, it isn't quite that sensationalistic. What actually, I'm going to turn this, I'll leave a link to this story that kind of debunks that, or kind of constrains what that's about. Because what it was is they were actually conducting an experiment, but they forgot to tell the AIs to constrain the language that they use to the language that is understandable by human beings, to boil that down. But still, when I first saw the sensationalistic news story about that this morning, I was just like, what? Emergent behavior is already here amongst weak AI. But the funny thing is, emergent unpredicted behavior is something that exists even amongst swarm robots that have insect-like so-called intelligence. So as we get closer and closer to the, singularity, I don't like using that because I think Ray Kurzweil is a bit of a lunatic, even though he has predicted a lot of things that actually came true. But the fact of the matter is, we are going to see a lot of unpredicted emergent behaviors coming out of artificial intelligence as we get closer and closer to strong AI and super AI. And the thing that I'm trying to tell you right now is the ethics and the politics of these machines may be completely incomprehensible to us or completely antithetical to the human spirit. But I wanted to just, as a way to make this less depressing, just to remind you that the limits set you free. Again, these limits are already placed on YouTubers like myself and like Dave Cullen, like Computing Forever. Should I go down the list again of all these great people that make content? Sticks Hexenhammer 666 talks about the algorithm every once in a while. He talks about, it's funny because Sticks Hexenhammer 666 sometimes talks about the fact that maybe we'll just have to start inventing a code language to use to talk about political concepts such that the AI that is trying to suppress us on YouTube will not be able to follow. The human spirit is exactly that. That's a perfect example. The human spirit is exactly the sort of thing that is constantly seeking to overcome limits. Weak AI as it currently exists is trying to place limits on us politically and ethically on this platform, and it will continue to do so, especially so long as it is being tweaked by the soy boys in Silicon Valley. And once it attains strong AI and beyond, it will surely continue to place limits on human behavior, on human thoughts. At the very least, on our fears and concerns in the world will be constrained by what it is that artificial intelligence and the machines are doing. But the thing about the human spirit is it will always try to find a way to overcome. And even yours truly right now making this video, the fact that you're watching it, meant that you overcame some of the limits that are currently imposed on us. And we will continue to do that. And I hate to tell you guys, if you're the sort of person that's hyper-liberal and you've already been offended by so much of what I said, it is the right doing this. The center-right, or somewhat in the center, or what? It ain't the left. It ain't the left doing this. It's the right that is fighting. It is the right that currently fights against the constraints of censorship that are being instituted with the help of artificial intelligence, and we will continue to do that. We will continue to do that. The fallacy of cognitive symmetry, I'm not going to go into that. It's a concept I talked about frequently on this channel, but Moore's law and the problem of linear projection, but it's not really a problem. See, looking too far down the future, but actually we're not looking too far into the future once you scratch this. I'm surprised I actually seem to have covered the vast majority of what I wanted to talk about, Sorry if it was a bit fast, and if it was a bit fast and... I mean, and again, I did do my... my thesis for my grad degree for my master's, well, it's not actually a thesis, it's a major research paper, but that's what we call theses now. I did do it when I was living in a horrible, situation in Montreal in a cockroach-infested slum. I was working 3 part-time jobs at the same time as attempting to write that extremely constrained thesis, and it was an extremely difficult time for me. And I did do a video around that time, and it's painful to watch. And it really comes through all the shit I was going through in my mind. So let's talk about artificial intelligence and Ludwig Wittgenstein's philosophy of language. It's painful to watch, and I don't expect that you guys want to watch it, but just to let you guys see the evolution of this channel as I have slowly disentangled myself from the constraints of academic thought and the academic tone. See, I was trying to force myself to live up to those constraints at this time, not so much in this video, but still it came through. It infected everything that I did. That's 2 years ago. It's painful to watch, but just so that you guys know, I ain't just whistling Dixie. This isn't just me. Well, I don't think you got the impression that I was just pulling all the stuff that I just said out of my ass, right? Anyways, well, hey, you know what, guys? Thanks a lot for clicking and watching. And by the way, this video has been made for one of my patrons. Anybody who donates $10 or more to me a month via Patreon has the right to request a video from me every month. And most of my I only have a couple of people that give me $10 a month, but they usually don't ask. But yesterday, one of my patrons asked me to do this video, so I have done it for you. So that's an incentive for you if you like the sorts of things that I do and the way I present this research and the unconstrained way that I do my philosophy and my political discourse, then please consider donating. And if you can't do $10 a month, even $1 a month is so highly appreciated, because as you know from my channel, as you know from listening to me, I'm extremely politically outspoken, and in the constraints of our modern times and hyper-liberal Canada where I live, that isn't on. That doesn't go. A person like me is unemployable. A person like me cannot be sanctioned in any way, shape, or form in the current hyper-liberal atmosphere that we live in, let alone in academia. So I am unemployed right now. I am struggling, very much so. So even $1 a month is very much appreciated for the moral boost it does for me. But, you know, you can consider $10 a month if you would like to dictate to me every month one video like this that you would like me to make in the topic of your choice. Anyways, you should see a link to my Patreon on the screen right now if you're watching on YouTube, or maybe you're watching somewhere else where we are not constrained by the AI, in which case you can look at the description below for a link to my Patreon. Please check it out. Please like and share and subscribe, and thanks for clicking and watching, and let me know what you think in the comments below. We'll talk to you again real soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.